this feast of Blessed Benedict Daswa, we are still very much at the beginning of a new year. And for many people, the beginning of a new year is a time to make resolutions about how they intend to live their lives in the coming year. When followed too, this is a good practice, for it contributes to conscious and purposeful living, something that is required for a meaningful and human and Christian life. Now, as we position ourselves spiritually to enter fully into this new year, we have today put before us the shining example of Blessed Benedict Daswa to inspire us and to influence our Christian living in our day-to-day lives. His story is by now well known to all of us. He was a person of deep faith and a committed Christian. He took a particular interest in sharing this faith with others, especially the younger members of his community, as a catechist. A committed school teacher and a community builder with a keen interest in promoting the common good of all, and who, as a result, enjoyed respect in his community. A generous person who gave freely to the poor, and we are reminded today through the theme selected, Benedict Daswa, the agriculturalist, of how he used to share the produce of his field, especially those most in need. Above all, Benedict Daswa was known for his absolute honesty, truthfulness, and integrity. Even in dying, Blessed Benedict Daswa continued to give a wonderful testimony of faith in God. He did not hold the sins of those who killed him against them. The prayer said to have been on his lips as he was being killed was of abandoning his life to God. Father, into your hands I commend my life. He was heard to be praying as his last prayer. The readings chosen for this feast raise up three very important things about Christian living. Things which Blessed Benedict Daswa exemplified beautifully in his own life. The first reading from the Book of Wisdom reminds us that an important aspect of our calling as Christians is to be prophets. Prophets of God in the world. And this is a responsibility that is not easy to embrace, for it is unsettling. We hear in the first reading of today how people are plotting against the righteous person, whom, because of his righteous behavior, they experience as a reproach to their sinful ways. They are plotting against the prophet. Let us test him with insult and torture, they say, so that we may find out how gentle he actually is, and make trial of his forbearance. Let us condemn him to a shameful death, for according to what he says, he will be protected. That sounds very much like the final episode in the life of Benedict Daswa. Let us condemn him to a shameful death, for according to what he says, he will be protected. But what does it mean to be a prophet? We ordinarily associate prophecy with the prediction or foretelling of things to come. Foretelling of the future. But this is Bible prophecy is most fundamentally about the present. It is about pointing out where God is in the present. What God is calling us to be and to do in the present. Prophecy is about the demands of God in the present. For this reason, prophecy often takes the form of critiquing the status quo or the present situation, which often falls short of what God desires of us. Hence, to be a prophet often translates into being a critical voice and a critical presence wherever you are. And we are reminded that the faithfulness to the calling to be a prophet is something that inevitably goes with suffering. The suffering of being rejected, labeled, misrepresented, persecuted, and yes, indeed, even killed for being a prophet. Blessed Benedict Daswa was a prophet. He faithfully stood for what his faith proclaimed and would not give in to any other beliefs that were opposed to what he believed as a Catholic Christian. And so, if we then gather here to honor Blessed Benedict Daswa, may we be aware that we are honoring a prophet. One who stood as a witness for God in the way he lived his life, even in the way he died. The second reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians reminds us of the spiritual qualities required for us to faithfully carry out our calling to be prophets of God in the world. To be prophets of God in the world and to do so fruitfully, there are certain qualities that are required. We see these qualities displayed in a shining way in the life example of Blessed Benedict Daswa. The first quality we are told a deep and strong faith. And so the reading says, above all, take the shield of faith with which you can quench all the flaming darts of the evil one. If we are to be prophets of God, we must have a strong and deep faith. We must be committed to our faith. It must be a living force within us, something that influences all that we are about, something that influences even the agendas we set for ourselves. And when faith is the living force, then we are able, like Benedict Daswa, to be prophets. Secondly, truthfulness and integrity. Stand, therefore, the reading says, having fastened the belt of truth around your waist and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Integrity. Be true to yourself. Let it be said about you that in him what you see is what you get. Integrity means not being double-faced. Integrity means not saying one thing here and another thing there. Integrity means standing firm, single-heartedly, holding on to what you truly believe, come what may. Benedict Daswa did just that. And that's why he is a prophet. The third quality, faithfulness to the word of God. The reading tells us, take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Adherence to the teaching of the word of God. Holding on to what God has taught us through his revealed word. And refusing to hold on to any other beliefs and things that militate against what the Word of God tells us. Benedict Daswa did that. And for that, he died. He was killed. He's a prophet. And lastly, the other quality, being an instrument of peace. Because even as a prophet, you must be motivated by being a peacemaker, a peace builder. Not going around the food about it. To be a prophet means to always be working for peace. Shod your feet with the equipment of the gospel of peace. And then the gospel for this celebration provides the most fundamental spiritual quality required in us if we are to faithfully carry out the calling of being prophet of God in the world. We must be ready to die to our little selves and to allow God to be God in our lives. To allow God's plans and purposes to take the central place in our lives. We need to rearrange, if you like, the furniture of our lounge, which is our heart, and make sure that God is always occupying his rightful seat in that lounge. We must be ready to empty ourselves as Jesus did. Though he was equal to God, he did not cling to equality with God. Instead, he emptied himself and allowed God to take the central place in his life. We must be able, as the gospel says, like the grain of wheat, we must fall into the earth and die in order to bear much fruit. We must give up the desire to put ourselves at the center and instead put God at the center and fully surrender to God's will and God's purposes. That's what is needed for us to be prophets of God. God must occupy the central place in our lives. And we must remove our own little egos, our own little selves, our own self-centered desires and opinions, and allow God to be the one occupying the central place in our lives. So those are the qualities we are told that are required in us if we are to faithfully carry out our calling and vocation to be prophets of God in the world, as Benedict Daswa was. Through this message, God is speaking this morning to each one of us as we contemplate the shining example of Blessed Benedict Daswa. God is addressing you and I. We are taught about the spiritual qualities that should inform and shape the way we live our daily lives as Christian believers. And so, this celebration, my dear brothers and sisters, this celebration of the feast of Blessed Benedict Daswa ought not to be just for us about admiring Benedict Daswa, honoring him from a distance, as it were. Rather, the most meaningful way to honor Blessed Benedict Daswa is to imitate him and to take him as a model for our faith living as we go about our daily lives. So we are not here to just honor Benedict Daswa, as I said at the beginning. Rather, we are here to renew our own faith in the light of the shining example of this holy man. So that when we return to our respective homes, after having participated in this pilgrimage, we go there as renewed Christians. People have recommitted themselves to live their Christian lives truly as Blessed Benedict Daswa did. And so, when tempted in the course of this year, as we most probably will, tempted to give in to the desire for people's approval and to compromise what we know to be true and right, and compromise ourselves in the process. May we remember Blessed Benedict Daswa and imitate his honesty, his truthfulness, his integrity. When we are tempted, as we most probably will in the course of this year, to people please, instead of pleasing God, may we remember Blessed Benedict Daswa and his shining example of honesty, truthfulness, and integrity. When our faith during the course of this year grows weak and we become lukewarm in our faith living and lose interest in participating in the life of our church communities, may we at that moment remember Blessed Benedict Daswa and be inspired by his strong and unwavering faith commitment. That's what it means to honor Blessed Benedict Daswa. When in the course of this year we are tempted to act in selfish ways that do not promote the common good of all, be it in our places of work, or where we live, or even where we worship, when we are tempted to be self-centered and selfish, may we please remember this holy man, Blessed Benedict Daswa, and be inspired by his unselfishness and generosity, and by his commitment to always promote the common good of the community. When those of you who work for the municipalities and the states and politics, when we are tempted during the course of this year to engage in corrupt activities, may you please at that moment remember that's what it means to honor Benedict Daswa. When in your communities you are tempted to engage in activities that militate against the good of the community, please remember at that moment Blessed Benedict Daswa. When we are tempted during the course of this year, as we most probably will, to take revenge on those who have wronged us in one way or another, or when we find our hearts hardening up, refusing to forgive, and instead holding on to anger and bitterness, may we please, I beg you at that moment, remember Blessed Benedict Daswa. And then do not hold those who sin against you to their sins. For the one we are honoring today did not hold the sins of those who killed him against them, but instead offered everything to God. That's what it means to celebrate Benedict Daswa. Benedict Daswa, may you have faith to work. Therefore, this pilgrimage must be for us not only a time to celebrate Blessed Benedict Daswa and to pray to God through his intercession. Rather, this pilgrimage should be for us a time of reflection and renewal in our own personal lives. It must be a time for us to examine ourselves and see where we stand at the present moment regarding our calling to be prophets of God in the world in which we live. Therefore, may our participation in this annual pilgrimage mark an important deepening in our worship and service of God. May it bring us to a point in our lives We will worship God in spirit and in truth, by being fully open to carry out His will for us and for the world, as Blessed Benedict Daswa did. May Blessed Benedict Daswa continue to be for us a shining star which guides us on our way, so that we may ever grow in becoming true and faithful disciples of Jesus Christ, who, upon coming into the world, we are told, said, "Here I am, Lord, I come to do your will." Blessed Benedict Daswa, pray for us. Blessed Benedict Daswa, Blessed Benedict Daswa.
Washu mwenini ova kamapungo Archbishop washu namusi ria umbuza uri namusi rokowanga na onepa rokowanga nila upembera yena Benedict Daswa upembera ashu upembera automa angwa muswa zwita ya zwino nina bonere chitoma angwa muswa Reatsiva hore kamana harena hare chomangwa ha umuswa retsena ni norma ikhathubo kahare ho dipilo tsa rena ga le hore ke re batla go fetola go ba go change tse itseng kahare go maphelo a rena o tla gana le tse go keteka yona feast ye go ba go phepela ena Benedict Daswa ke nako ya gore nna le wena re khathube kahare go ditumelo tsa rena gore nna le wena le tshie Benedict Daswa ka go khobakana ga rena fa go ba yena motho o le gore o a re tlhotlheletsa ka gare go ditumelo tsa rena ka gare go leeto la rena la bokriste re a diba gore Benedict Daswa o ba we monna go le re o a porofetseya ka mtendo rawe o a porofetseya ka motsimo wawe le motho o le re botshelo wawe bo ba bochita gore batho ba nji ba chitamele ba ngaena so le rena we must be inspired gore re tlhotlheletse ke bophelo ba Benedict Daswa re a tseba a gologolo le ba rutishi kana ba tetesi ore bjalo ka Benedict Daswa he was also a principal le rena le ka ba tetesi o swanetse gore re itemene re tamele o ba o fana na Daswa gore mishumo yashu zote re ko zitwa mishumo yashu re tame o fana na Daswa bo lore ba toita gore ubuda abana tshikoloni wetele phana re a diba gore Daswa bo ba motho o lore wa porofetseya ka mota kana ka setšhaba ka moka le rena belo re a bitšiwa gore re khathoba re batho ba le gore re a tshepagala setšhabeng re ba batho ba le gore re neela go direla batho ba bangwe ka gare go maphelo a rena Daswa ne a tsebe o le motho le gore o phela ka nnete le botshepegi setšhabeng a ke re khathobe nna le wena gore le ka ba nne le bone re a porofetseya kana re batho ba le gore ne batho ba tšheresesa ba bona o motho gore o ile ngwana wa motsimo kana le motho dai re be kola gore re ba batho ba le gore we always re fa botlhatse ka dilo tse di botse kana buka ya rena o ba epalo ya rena ya pele o tswa bukeng ya botlhale re a gopotswa gore re swanetse go ba ba profeta ba motsimo re go tla gore re be batho ba le gore we take responsibility kana re tšea maikarabelo ga o direla modimo ka dinako ka moka re a diba basho bange bakaina ya neta ngena nya sweswi neta ngena sweswi mara la steva korai bakaina ba swisisa sivela na spila ke so mitazama kore na bona ni ba accommodate kana so we have been reminded kore me ateba kore uba munhu wa ku tirela xikwembu swa baba kana swa tika ka kore swi lava kore ube munhu o lo kore you choose go khetha over dilo ka muka uba muthu o lo kore o shy away from the sinful way uba muthu o lo kore o khawana le sebi belo ka re mo rena wa rena Daswa yo re mo ke tsa le kholo re a tseba gore ke motho o lo he was always against usidirete lo goreng asita modimo go tshwanetse goreng le rena re be batho ba lo goreng re na le kholofelo ya goreng re direle modimo ke pitso ye le goreng re dile tsa yona ya ba profeta ba lo goreng re a tseba goreng ke batho ba lo goreng ba tsbojalo tse le goreng di sa tlo ile gala ka ga maphelo a rena mara bele ka Benedict Daswa re tshwanetse goreng re be ba profeta ba lo goreng ba bolela nnete ga se sengwe le se sengwe se le goreng jete ya duba na duba ore ifiri chibona zwithu zwa zwelo ri zwaite nga matshoni a shukana ka shango a si zwavhuḓi ri khou ṱoḓa uri ri vhe vhathu vha ḽo ri vha ḓivhadza kana u khetha u vha vha profeta uri vha vhe ngoho ri a ḓivha uri rine sa vhathu vha mudzimu u khou ṱoḓa uri maḓuvha ashu ri khou ṱoḓa uri ri vhe ro ima nḓilini ya u fulufhedzea kha muṋe washu. Vho Daswa, he was a prophet yo le gore o ile a ba khatsi ya morena modimo ka gare mo bophelo ba gagwe ke mo ile a ba monne le gore o a tshepagala o lentšu la morena modimo o fitlhelela bophelong ba gagwe ba bafelelo bukeng ya rena ya bobedi go tswa go moprofeta Paulo a ngwala Bakorinta re a tloa gore rena ka moka re a tlhotlheletswa go ba baprofeta ba le gore ba gobagile go bile ba eme tumelong tša bona tse le gore ba ikemiseditše go direla morena modimo wa bona not baprofeta ba le gore ba batla go dira se le gore ke se tswa ka dipelong tša bona mara ba dire se le gore ke sa modimo ka gare go maphelo a bona go tlhoka gore re be batho ba go phuruphetsea. Daswa o ba o motho wa go phuruphetsea ka lutendo lwawe na modimo wawe o phuruphetsea ka nne mone zwa o thoma motho a thoma ka go phuruphetsea ka ene mone before a tshi phuruphetsea ka modimo ngauri mini if motho a sa phuruphetsea ka ene mone then se ka se itea uri hoyo motho a phuruphetsea ka muṅwe motho kana ka modimo motho ka thome ka go phuruphetsea ka ene mone uri a ḓivhe uri mini ene you are the instrument of peace ka gare go maphelo a rena re ba batho ba le goreng ba tlisa kgotso setšhabeng ka maphelong a rena. Bobishopo ba ile ba tswalela ba ka evankheli ya rena ka go bolela ka ge evankheli ya rena e boletšwe ka gona gore re a tseba gore re na le go lekeya ka gare go maphelo a rena ba boletše ka dilo tša go fapafapana ba boletše gore ifi mohlomongwe wa polotiki ge o ka re mohlomongwe o lekeya a ke dikgetho dite re o kgetha ka lekgala so ba kuamba mapungo a gore mene ifi motho wa monaka o re a reke shango phanḓa ifi a tshi umbula o ita zwelo rene a si khou ṱoḓa uri zwi ite uri shango ḽi ye phanḓa a itele ene muṋe hoyu muthu a humbule Vho Daswa ngauri mini Vho Daswa vho vha vha tshi ita mini uri ni shango ḽi vhe na mulalo shango ḽi vhe na vhuthu shango ḽi vhe na mudzimu so if nne na vhone ri itea uri zwezwi khou benefita nne na vhone fhedzi society shango then we are missing the point. O tla ga re na fa ngwaga le ngwaga go tshwanetse goreng go be nako ye e le goreng ya re tlhotlheletša goreng re fetole maphelo a rena e be nako ye e le goreng ya re tlhotlheletša goreng nna le wena tšatši le lengwe le lengwe goba ngwaga mongwe le mongwe rena mo toketse ka Daswa a ke ge re boela mageng ya gorena re boele le ditho tše e le goreng di fetogile tše e le goreng di tlhotlheletšwa ke bophelo ba Benedict Daswa a ke nako ye ya go tumiša kana go pemela Benedict Daswa o be tshifhinga tsha uri mini nne na bone re humbele mudzimu washu uri a re phathise kha lutendo lwashu na kha fulufhedzo yashu kha mo Benedict Daswa washu o vhene na redzi anke Benedict Daswa o vhene na ledie le goreng e rekisa pele go morena modimo anke Benedict Daswa o vhene na ledie le goreng e rekisa gaufi le nnete ya morena modimo. Benedict Daswa a re rapelele Benedict Daswa a re rapelele Benedict Daswa a re rapelele.